G'day, it's Mark and welcome back to the channel. And in this episode, we look at the Chrysler VC Valiant. The VC Valiant was built from March 1966 until September 1967. And the car was assembled at Chrysler's Tonsley Park in South Australia. The car was available as a four-door sedan, a station wagon, and a coupe utility. The VC Valiant was powered by a 225 cubic inch slant 6 or 3.7 litre and an optional 273 cubic inch or 4.5 litre V8. Transmissions were a 3-speed manual or a 3-speed automatic. The VC Valiant was longer and lower than any previous Australian Valiant, and it was essentially a facelift of the previous AP6 model. Initially, Chrysler were going to refer to the car as the AP7, but eventually the designation became VC. Sedans had new rear styling with vertical taillights, and the taillights reminded me of almost a Cadillac sort of theme, which I thought looked really good, particularly with that quite formal roofline, the C-pillar. I felt that it really gave the VC Valiant quite an upmarket air compared to its Ford and Holden rivals. And again, the Chrysler products were priced slightly higher than the equivalent Holden and Ford models. Wagons and utilities carried over the rear lights that had been used from the AP6 predecessor. There was increased differentiation in the VC Valiant range, more differentiation between the models, which included the Valiant, the Regal, and the V8. And each of these models had their own unique trim levels and decoration so they could be distinguished from each other. The Regal and the V8 models had a chrome strip that was situated near the lower edge of the doors, and the V8 models featured a vinyl roof, bucket seats, and a floor-mounted gear selector with a full-length centre console. That applied to the sedan models, as well as V8 badges on the rear roof pillars, the boot lid, or the trunk lid if you're American, plus V8 bonnet emblems and hubcaps. It's pretty cool, actually. It was a great-looking package. Still had that Plymouth Barracuda front buckets and also the centre console. It really was, as I said, a really nice package. The V8 sedans also featured 3 horizontal chrome bars on the rear quarter panel. Front disc brakes were introduced as an option in November 1966. The model range consisted of the Valiant 225 sedan VC M41, the Valiant 225 Safari wagon VC M45, the Valiant Regal sedan VC H41, the Valiant Regal Safari wagon VC H45, the Valiant 273 V8 sedan VC P41, the Valiant 273 V8 Safari wagon VC P45, and the Valiant Wayfarer utility, which was VC M20. Funnily enough, when I worked at Mitsubishi, the model codes for Sigmas and Magnas and so on very much mimicked some of these codes. So, for example, model codes, a Sigma sedan would be like a GJ 1H41 would be a mid-range sedan. A 45 would be a wagon. An M would be a base model. H was the mid-range, and P is the high series cars. So, like an SE would be, a GJ 2P41 would be like an SE Sigma sedan. So it's quite interesting to see that Mitsubishi basically lifted the same model codes as Chrysler used. I guess this makes sense from a production, coordination point of view. Dimensions were length 188.3 inches or 4,782 millimetres. It's for the sedan. Wheelbase 106 inches or 2,692 millimetres, again for the sedan. The width was 69 inches or 1,753 millimetres. and the height was 55 inches or 1,397 millimetres. The curb weight for a standard sedan was 2,774 pounds or 1,258 kilograms. Also worth mentioning in the range was a Dodge 106 heavy-duty utility, and that was a variant of the Valiant Wayfarer utility, marketed as a Dodge, and it had a 1,500-pound load capacity, and that compared to the 1,200-pound load capacity of the Wayfarer. There wasn't a lot of differentiation, except the Dodge was more of a basic-looking car with less chrome and less exterior decoration, and it was badged Dodge. Chrysler Australia also produced 33 or 34 Valiant sedans with the base level trim, but equipped it with a 273 V8. And these were used by Victoria and South Australian police forces as high-speed pursuit vehicles. They'd be extremely rare now. I've never seen one. And these show in the production records as V41. Regular production-based Valiants use model code M41, whilst regular production V8s use the luxury trim, which was P41. Externally, they were identical to the regular six-cylinder Valiant sedans and had the standard base level trim and didn't have all the decoration that was on the luxury models. From a motorsport perspective, there were two VC Valiant V8 automatics that were entered into the 1966 Gallagher 500 endurance race at Mount Panorama, Bathurst, and they finished first and second in their class, which was Class D. Overall, they finished 10th and 11th outright, and they're only beaten by the Mini Cooper S's, which filled the first 9 places. 1 to 9, that's a pretty good victory for the old Mini. Australia had moved to decimal currency on the 14th of February 1966. So the price for a Valiant sedan manual was $2,490. A V8 Regal Safari wagon was $3,590, and a Wayfarer Ute manual was $2,128. So that just gives you a little bit of an idea in terms of pricing. In traditional Chrysler fashion, instrumentation was quite good. Speedometer, obviously a fuel gauge, temperature gauge, an alternator gauge, and also an oil warning lamp as well. The cars all had 14-inch tyres, 4-ply on the sedans and wagons and 6-ply on the ute. The V8s also had the same tyres, although the V8s and also the Regals also had white wall tyres. Brakes were self-adjusting drums with a divided master cylinder, and the front brakes on the V8s were finned as well. As I mentioned before, later models also had the availability of disc brakes, and they became standard on the V8 models in the later part of the model run. Suspension was the usual torsion bar at the front and leaf spring at the rear. The V8 Valiant could accelerate from 0 to 60 miles an hour or 97 kilometres an hour in 10.9 seconds and could do the quarter mile or the 400 metres in 17.4 seconds. Power on the 6-cylinder was 145 brake horsepower or 108.1 kilowatts. Torque was 215 foot-pounds or 291 newton meters. For the V8, the power was 180 horsepower, which is 134.2 kilowatts, and 260 foot-pounds of torque, which is 352 newton meters. In terms of export, from 1966 onwards, Chrysler Australia was responsible for providing right-hand drive cars worldwide, with the exception of South Africa. And the VC Valiant was the first Australian Valiant to become available in Britain. And that was announced in October 1966 at the London Motor Show. And the models were given British names. So, for example, the standard Valiant was the medium saloon. The Valiant Safari wagon was the medium Safari estate car. The Regal was the Regal Highline Saloon automatic. And the Regal Safari wagon was the Regal Safari, Highline Safari, and then the V8 was the Premium V8 Saloon and the Premium Safari estate car. Sounds a bit unwieldy, but I guess the English like to use the word saloon, don't they? A total of 65,634 VC Valiants were built. Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode on the Chrysler VC Valiant. Certainly one of my favourite models of the early Valiant series. Please make sure that you give the episode a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. It doesn't cost a cent and it really does help the channel. Also, if you haven't already, check out the full playlist on the Chrysler Valiant series. Plus, there's a whole lot of other episodes on Holden Commodores, Ford Fairlanes, Ford Falcons, and a lot more. Anyway, thanks very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the episode, and we'll see you next time. Bye.